Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to another ACC Live. This is Imran, and we got a very special program and guest for you today. We have our brother Mutah Beale, formerly known as Napoleon, former rapper from the group The Outlawz, who used to rap with Tupac, and got some exciting news for you today. We're going to be discussing a new book that's being released. We're going to be talking about the brother's life a little bit, and we're going to be connecting it to ACC's mission in regards to providing interest-free education by providing people the opportunity to receive an education at cost and hopefully change and impact their lives. Brother Napoleon, Brother Mutah, how are you?
Fine. How are you, brother? Salam alaikum. How's
Wa
everything?
alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah, doing well. I really appreciate the time.
Pleasure's mine, brother. Pleasure's all mine. How was
So,
the lighting? Because I just came to my house, man. There's no professional studio lighting, so hopefully it's good.
hey man, we're both working with the lighting that we have. I don't have any professional lighting myself, so it's all good.
Alhamdulillah.
So, inshallah, just for our viewers, for some of our new viewers, Brother Mutta was a pretty famous rapper early on in his life as a teenager. Used to rap with Tupac, rap with other individuals, and was part of the group The Outlawz. He gave up all of that, all of those things, the lifestyle, the money, etc., when he embraced Islam and accepted Islam as a way of life. And mashallah, we're going to be discussing many things today. The brother is a serial entrepreneur. He's someone whose blood is infested with the entrepreneurial gene. He's always, from what I know, mashallah, he's doing many things. Has a coffee shop, has some restaurants, has a book that's coming out. And Brother Mutta, before we get into it, just quickly, before we go into your story a little bit, I wanted to discuss and give a shout out to the book that's going to be launching soon, Life is Raw, as told by you and written by our good friend and someone who we've had on the show as well, Suleiman Jenkins, aka the real professor. So
I didn't know that was his AKA, but now I'm glad to know that.
yeah, I had to give that to him because he's from Brooklyn, but we can't confuse him with the professor who's the and one basketballer, so we got to give him the real professor name.
Sa. Thank you, bro. Thank you, man.
So tell us about the book, bro. Why did you guys decide to put this together, and what do you guys hope to accomplish by putting it out there?
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, I recently released a documentary on my life called Life of an Outlaw. We finished a documentary years ago, and recently we was able to drop it, I would say about a year or two ago, maybe a year ago or something like that, a little longer. And me and Suleiman been friends, you know what I mean? We met when I actually first moved to Saudi Arabia about 10 years ago. We always just kept in contact with each other. And one day there was a comment on my Instagram page where somebody left a comment under the trailer of my documentary and said, "Why don't you write a book?" And Suleiman, he seen the comment and he hit me up. He's like, "Look, pretty much the people asking for a book. If you ever need, someone to write the book for you, I can do it." You know what I mean? He was real humble. You know what I mean? He never came and told me how much of a good writer he was. So, you know what I mean? So I was thinking, in the past, somebody wrote a book for me. And may Allah reward the brother for trying to do his best. But I felt like he didn't really put no importance on many things within the book. He just pretty much quickly wrote the book and put it out there. So he didn't go to details. He didn't really no explanation skills. Everything was just, plain. So when I seen and that book came out that we tried to release, that was probably years ago before I even moved to Saudi Arabia. So I just gave up. Like, you know what, man? I ain't really trying to do a book about my life. But when Suleiman approached me, I was thinking the same thing. Like, because I didn't really know his level of his academic level was on a whole nother level. You know what I mean? He's humble. He's from the hood, but he actually wrote, Oxford University, for example, Oxford. I forget the name of, they
University
Oxford Press.
Yep.
So Oxford Press, they don't just accept anybody writings, but they accepted, mashallah, tabarakallah, a few of Suleiman writings. You know what I mean? So when he told me that, I was like, wait a minute, he must really got some, he must be onto something. And then when he sent me like a breakdown or sample of what the book would be like, I was like, wow, it exceeded my expectations. So I was like, let's do it. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much how it came about. And Suleiman is a person, because he wrote the book in a way that, even me, I didn't really know what type of direction or what direction, if if I had the lead and how to write the book, I wouldn't really know what direction to take it. You know what I mean? Because I didn't really know what the people would want to hear. But the way he wrote the book, it allowed me to realize that he did it in a way that was so, you know what I mean, that he gonna let people understand my background. He's gonna let people understand the days and the years that I spent in the music industry, growing up in Jersey. He did everything in a way that it would be accepted for those who might not understand that life, those who might not even listen to hip hop. You know what I mean? Those who know nothing about the streets, everyone will be able to accept the way he wrote the book. It's a message that's clear, and we hope that it be the message that we can get from it is hope, that people can say, look, this is an individual who went through a lot of, you know, struggles in life, but by the permission of God, he was able to make it out of it. You know what I mean?
What's interesting is I have two questions, but based on what you just said, I've seen this in terms of your story, that when you tell your story, you're really trying to steer people away from that lifestyle, right?
Yes, yes.
But I find that when you talk to, and I'm not going to say which group, but when you talk to some of the younger generation of individuals who've never even gone close to that lifestyle, they seem very allured by it, even though you're giving them warnings and you're telling them that, look, that comes with a lot of headaches that you don't even want to interact
Yeah.
with. So is that what
Definitely.
you said?
You know, unfortunately, because the time that we're living in, you know, is they glamorize that lifestyle. In my day and age, like growing up in my time in the music industry, you know, growing up in the 90s, for example, you know, we didn't really have like social media. You know what I mean? We was glamorizing hip hop, and we was doing it in our videos and our interviews, and that was just as far as it can get. You know, we didn't have YouTube, so if they don't pick up your video, or whatever, MTV or BT, no one will have access to the message you're trying to put out there. Now, with the you know the rise of social
Yeah.
media, a person can just have his phone, and he can be living in Africa and the Middle East, and he can see a lifestyle that they're portraying in America, when majority of these individuals, these rappers, they never really lived that life. You know what I mean? It's probably 1% that actually really been through what they talking about on their records. So they able to glamorize it in a way that it can reach millions by a press of a button. So like you said, you got some of these kids that fall victim to that because it's like a game to them. They don't realize the reality of that lifestyle, man. That it has nothing good to offer. It has nothing good to offer at all. It's like the hip hop and the lives, the messages that rappers are putting out there is nothing but drugs, you know, murder. And now they even glorifying gang violence. So all of this is packaged within music, and it's packaged in a way that the people that's accepting it worldwide, they think it's just a part of life. You know what I mean? And they think it's a game, for example. And those who really lived it, they trying to get away from it. And even the
Mm,
rappers themselves, the reason why they actually putting out that music, because they know it sells and it makes money,
mm,
so that they can actually get away from the hood, that they can actually run away from that lifestyle. So it's like a double-edged sword, because these rappers know that, look, man, this is an easy way for me to get up out of the hood. The record label's going to sign me if I portray this type of image in my music. But at the end of the day, while their kids are going to, you know, the best
the
schools and
best
stuff,
schools.
these lyrics are sending people to prison. The ones who don't really know how to differentiate that this is entertainment. You know what I mean?
What's interesting is that you know, I think you hit it on the head with social media and the access. Like anybody can become an influencer, anyone can become popular on TikTok and Instagram. But there's actually studies about the dopamine. It's a chemical released by the brain, which is like the pleasure
Yes.
chemical. So when these kids
Yes.
they get likes and followers, it releases that dopamine, right? And they get that like instant gratification. Whereas in the 90s, if you want that gratification, you had to put in the hard work and the
Yeah.
effort, and it took time.
Definitely.
Um, but part of it also is when they don't get those likes, it makes them depressed, right? And that's where I find that there's that connection where they should just listen to the guys who've been down that path. And there's
Yeah.
even non-Muslim rappers and movie stars who all tell you about, you know, the shallowness of that lifestyle and the, you know, the things that you miss out on when you grow up in that type of environment. But now let's go back to the book. So what's interesting
Yeah.
is I was talking to Suleiman maybe 8 or 9 months ago, maybe even before that, about the book. And one thing that he emphasized about the book, he said, it's not just going to be a story. This is going to be a tool, right? So it's going to be something that university professors can use in sociology class. It's something that they can use in political science class, right? We're going to talk, we cover the crack epidemic in the African American community. We can talk
Yes.
about single black males not growing up with their fathers.
Yes.
So
Facts.
from that regard, talk to us about what benefits the book is going to offer society at large, not just from the perspective of a former musician, but from someone who's really seen the different parts of society?
I think the book, even for me, it was therapy. You know what
Mm,
I mean? For me
mm,
to be able to I remember when we finished the book, it was just like this. It just felt like a burden was released, like a relief that I felt like, man, I finally was able to touch on things that for so many years I tried to keep tucked away. You know what I mean? There
mm,
was so many things that I went through in my life that I really didn't face it. After I accepted the religion of Islam, I just said, it was from Allah, it happened. Let's let it go. You know what I mean? And not just the death of my mother and father. So many things that, losing loved ones. My brother committed suicide. A lot of things that I just saying, when I'm just going to keep in the back of my head and I'm going to move on with life. So when he wrote the book and I was able to speak about things that a lot of stuff I forgot. And that's the
mm.
crazy. It may be from trauma. You know what I mean? A lot of stuff that it was just bringing back my memory on certain things that I was recollecting on certain things that happened. I was like, wait a minute, did I really do this? Did I really go through that? So the book was therapy for me.
Mm,
So I hope that it can be the same way for others. You know what I mean?
mm.
That other people can get the message of, this is an individual. And I know there's people out there that has a story that's worse than mine, or a story that's not worse than mine, or a story that they might have went through conflict that was worse than mine. You know what I mean? They might have went through things that was, you know what I mean? Their life probably was harder than mine. And I hope that this book can be a message for those to say that, look, you know what I mean? This is an individual that did have a rough life. A lot of rappers say that they had a rough life to sell records, but I really had a rough life by the permission of God, and I accept it. I'm not mad at anything, you know what I mean? Because I say Allah written that life for me, so there was good in it, even if I don't understand it. Even from the naked eye that I might not understand it, but it's definitely some khair in that life because Allah written it for me, and that's what I went through. And I look at the life and the things that I went through in life, I mean, as a learning experience, you know what I mean? So I just hope people can take, because my book, it speak about so many different levels of life. You know what I mean? Growing up in the ghetto, I was 13, 14 years old, so I'm trying to sell cocaine. You know what I mean? When that didn't work out for me, luckily I had people in my neighborhood, like my man Corey, Shalabi, and other homies in my neighborhood, Rab, who they was drug dealers and gangsters, and they was, and even my brothers and my cousin, and they seen something in me that even then I didn't see in myself. But they was saying,
Mm.
"Look, we don't want you to follow our footsteps and be out here on the block. Why are you selling drugs?" You know what I mean? And we touch up on this in the book when they came to me and said, "Why are you selling drugs?" And I was like, "Look, I just want new clothes, new sneakers from time to time, and I want to go in the studio." They was like, "Look, man, we would give you the money. You know what I mean? We would give you new clothes. We'll buy you new sneakers. Don't throw away your life doing what we doing. We too deep inside of it. We came too far. You know what I mean? So I had people around me that seen good in me that I didn't even see in my own self. You understand? So we just hope that the book can allow the people to know that no matter how hard life gets, there's always a way that you can bounce back from it.
Isn't it crazy that early on, you're selling drugs as a teenager, which is harming people, and I
Yeah.
mean, again, it's no secret you're physically harming people as well, right? I've heard a couple of stories in terms of jahiliyyah and in the youth, but now life comes full circle, and you're helping people, right? And you
Alhamdulillah, by Allah's permission, Aki. Alhamdulillah. You know what I
and
mean?
you're trying to everything that you're trying to do, and of course some of this I know because you're a public person, a public persona, but I also know from Suleiman in the book, but
Yes.
even through entrepreneurship, obviously we know as business owners we employ people, right? And
Yes.
that helps those people. And in terms of the book, we also talked about the comprehensive benefits of the book, who it can help. You do
Mhm.
your talks and speeches to the youth. So
Yes. Definitely. Definitely.
how much do you know about ACC? I know you know a little bit, but I'm gonna give you a little background on A Continuous Charity. So we're providing interest-free loans to
Mhm.
students in America, so they can go to college and study at cost, so they don't fall into getting an interest-bearing loan, right?
That's
And
amazing. I didn't even know that, man. That's
yeah,
that's dope.
oh,
Wow, man.
we've handed out over 1 million, man. You know,
Wow, man.
yeah.
Allah bless you, man. Keep that.
I mean,
Then that needs to be spreaded. People need to know more about your program, man. You know what I
so
mean?
what?
Because that's amazing.
And now what they're doing is, and they figured that, look, there's been a lot of talk about the inner cities and underserved and underrepresented communities. So they
Yeah.
figured, okay, why don't we come up with a program that's going to now just direct our funds towards helping people who really need it, right? So
MashaAllah.
my question to you is, I
Yes.
know a little bit about your story. You guys were, while your parents were alive, your parents were working, they were hardworking. You guys were better off than most, right? Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, I would say that definitely. My
Mm,
father, when I was a young, when I was born, even before I was born, my father was he was a hustler. You know
mm,
what I mean? Like he was selling diamonds, bro. Like back then, you know, now you can go to certain neighborhoods in America, and you can see African Americans driving good cars, living in good homes. Like he lived in the suburbs of Irvington. Like
mm,
when the rest of the Irvington, like my neighborhood, my grandmother was living. He actually put my grandmother in that house, like the far end of this part of the Irvington. In the middle was the ghetto. And then he lived also in the end where it was the suburbs at that particular time, where not only did he purchase a house for himself, but also for his mother. And he was only, when my father died, he was only 27 years old,
mm,
26, 27 years old. And he was making a lot of money being one of the first African Americans within the New Jersey, New York area that was actually selling loose diamonds. You know
mm,
what I mean? And with that lifestyle comes envy, of course, because back then, 26, 27 years old, back then, a brand new Cadillac Seville was like a Rolls Royce in our time. He
right.
was riding around, him and his whole homies, they all had Cadillac Sevilles. He had my mother draped up in the nicest furs and jewelry and gold. And unfortunately, that lifestyle, it can be flashy, especially back then. You know what I mean? When you can say that a lot of the African American, the Browns community was more impoverished. They was more in poverty. They didn't have it like we have it now, even though you still have poverty in African American communities, but it wasn't like back then in the late 70s, early 80s. You know what I mean? Where you see one person shining, it's rare in the hood. You know what I mean? When I grew up, it started changing. You know what I mean? And now it's different. You can go to LA, for example, and see a whole neighborhood. I forget the name of the neighborhoods, all $1 million homes owned by African Americans. But in the time of my father, it was rare. So it was one of them things where jealousy led to his demise, you know what I mean? And the demise of my mother. And but he always had that entrepreneurial spirit in him. And I think that's where I got it from. Where now I'm
Mm,
doing entrepreneurship and I'm doing business as an entrepreneur. And I've been like that my whole life. My aunt told me that when my father was like 12 or 10 or 12, 11, in that age group, that he used to he used to blow up balloons in the basement, and he used to bring all the neighborhood kids, and he used to charge them like a quarter to throw a dart
mashallah.
at the balloons. And
Mm.
they used to pay him to say, "Let's see who can hit the balloon." You know what I mean? So he had that entrepreneur style in him from a young age. You know what I mean? And I
So
think I picked that up.
my assumption is that, and I could be wrong, but say he didn't pass away, right? And he didn't get murdered.
Yes.
Um, your life would have been drastically different. Even so, you guys were
That,
not. So my question is, in terms of what ACC is trying to do with giving access by giving funds to underserved and underrepresented communities, talk to us about what do you think that would provide these communities, and along with forms of mentorship, because you mentioned there were people around your life very early on who said, look, this ain't for you. You got a bigger skill set and you could go tackle bigger things. So what type of what benefit can we give these underserved communities by giving them funding, by giving them mentorship?
I think you giving them you doing something that unfortunately in some cases, even the government not even able to help them in these areas. You know what I mean? Like you have so many people that want to go to school and they can't afford a loan, or they're afraid to put themselves in the loan because of the interest rate and interest in these type of things. Not the interest rate, interest period. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So you have people that cannot get a loan. You know what I mean? And I think what you're doing is helping people, giving them a chance. A lot of people are afraid to even walk into a bank. You got people that's afraid to even try. You know
mm,
what I mean? So I think, and then you hear the stories of people that's still in debt, that went to college in the 80s and they still trying to pay off they college debt. So a lot of people are afraid to take that chance. So by you guys giving them an interest-free loan, you can help with that step can help change neighborhoods. It can help change mindsets. You know what I mean? It can give the people in the inner city a chance to say, you know what, maybe I won't be able to get a loan with interest free. I want to stay away from that because I don't want to be in debt. After I finish college, I want to be able to work and not have my money or my paycheck going to pay off of me trying to get an education so that I can make a living. So I think what you guys are doing is amazing, man. And I'm glad to hear something like that. And I'm gonna try to help spread the word for sure.
inshallah, brother. So,
Definitely.
so talk to us. Summarize it for us in terms of, because the title of our lecture today was the School of Life.
Yeah.
I'll bring it back up here. So the thought process was that while you're not traditionally educated, right, but you're
Yes.
educated by life experiences and the things that you
Definitely.
have gone through. So now for the young guys and the young brothers and sisters listening, give them some advice, please, in terms of what through your life education have you learned that you can impart on them.
I think I'm all for education. Like the way I'm raising my kids now is different than the way I grew up. You know what I mean? Because my grandparents, they had a lot on their plate. They was taking care of so many kids. It was about 8 of us kids alone. So I didn't have nobody when I came home from school to say, "Did you do your homework?" I didn't have any of that. You know what I mean? So it was very difficult. So I was able to. I didn't put too much emphasis on education growing up. But
Mm,
the way my kids are being raised, you know what I mean? It's on a whole nother level where, and not just me. When they come home, my wife is making sure, what did you learn today? What did like she going through the books with them. She's a teacher as well, so she's going through everything. And Fajr time before they go to school, she's double checking everything. She's making sure that they're on point. And I used to say she's too hard on them until I seen a report card. And alhamdulillah, by the permission of Allah, they get all straight A's. You know what I
mashallah.
mean? So I learned things that school you cannot learn in school. You know what I mean? That I'm able to still implement these teachings to my children, the teaching that's not in contradiction of the religion of Islam. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people believe that, there's certain things, just like a Bedouin in the middle of a desert, there's certain things that his intuition, he's going to pick up from his intuition that's going to help him survive that desert, that barren desert. You know what I mean? That he might not be able to open up a book and learn. They had that here. You listen to you speak with the older generation of the Arabs and the Bedouins. You know what I mean? They knew how to walk in the desert and find out what plant they can pull out of the desert, just a small plant, and drink some water from it. You know what I mean? Just by looking at it. So these are the things we learned from growing up in the streets. That there's certain things that you're not
Mm,
going to learn in school, and these survival tactics that I feel is beneficial. You know what I mean? That even in Islam, it tells us that these are the things we don't throw aside. You're
mm,
not going to learn from school, and these are the things I try to tell the kids. You know what I mean? That so when we speak from experience by saying, look, there's nothing, you know what I mean, in the streets that we want the kids to pick up. And I'm not saying this so we telling the kids, okay, go learn things from the street since you ain't going to learn from school. No, we're not saying that
mm,
at all, because many of us, if not all of us, that grew up in these conditions, if we had another chance or we had other
mm.
options, we would have chose the better options. You know what I mean? We wouldn't have been in the streets going through what we're going through if we had another way out. So we're not telling the people to go and learn these things, but we learned a lot that that we can implement that help me survive in later in life. You know what I mean?
But don't you think? I think the things that you're referring to are like grit, resilience, right? Mental
Definitely,
toughness. I mean,
definitely.
we could start incorporating those things into the curriculum. We can have after school programs where it's jiu-jitsu or some type of martial arts.
Yeah,
So
exactly. There's many ways that you can implement these things: the patience, the resilience, the you know what I mean, the perseverance and stuff. And you can learn through activities, basketball, martial art, patience, and learning the Quran. Because to learn Quran, you're gonna need sabr, you're gonna need
mm.
patience. We went through that the hard way, but alhamdulillah, we're able to raise our kids and tell them that you can still get this in a good way. You know what I mean? In the halal way, matter of fact.
So just to be clear, brothers and sisters, again, you have a former celebrity. I mean, still celebrity, but a halal celebrity, but someone who had the allurements of life within his grasp in terms of money, women, fame, and who's telling you that stay away from that lifestyle. Right? It's very empty. It's a lot of empty promises, but you see that the mechanisms that took him to that fame, he's still utilizing now in his entrepreneurship, as we call it, the hustle. Right? In terms of creating these books and creating these tools and mechanisms that are helping other people get employment or helping other people through his education. Um, Muta, I'm going to leave the last word to you, brother, and then we're going to close it out.
Man, thanks. It was a pleasure, man. And I need to know more about your program. You know what I mean? We need to spread more. Let the people in the states know that these they do have some options out there, and they do have this program. I think is amazing, man. And for the kids that's watching, you know what I mean? Alhamdulillah, if you have a chance to improve your life, have a chance to educate yourself. Don't go to the street life. You know what I mean? Don't believe these rappers. Don't believe these rappers. You know what I mean? I think it was a song a long time ago about Scarface where he said, "Don't believe that song. Gangsters don't live that long." And this is the reality.
Mm.
You know what I mean? This is the reality of that life that unfortunately it's being broadcast through so many different channels nowadays, through social media, through television, through everywhere. And the kids right now being bombarded in ways that we never been. You know what I mean? These things is coming at them from every angle. So they have to be more, you know what I mean, aware of these traps. You know what I mean? That the shaitan and his helpers are trying to lay down for them, man. So I hope that my book, you know what I mean, would be one outlet to let the people know, look, man, stay away from these traps. He fell for them, but by the permission of Allah, by the permission of God, he was able to walk away from them. And programs like what you're doing, so the people can say there are people out there that's trying to help the people. You know what I mean? So that's all, man. And thanks for having me on the show, bro.
Welcome. May the Most High reward you, man. Reward all those around you, and keep you guys safe and steadfast. The pleasure was ours, my brother. And
Thank you, brother.
you're welcome. And for everybody tuning in, guys, acceducate.org. You'll see it right at the bottom of the screen. We're providing interest-free loans so people can go pursue their higher educational dreams. And we have a new inner city program that we're starting where we're going to be giving educational funding to people from underserved and underrepresented communities. And hopefully this is a means of upliftment. A lot of us get very emotional and we talk about left versus right and this versus that. But now it's time to put your money where your mouth is, right? And actually help these communities by giving them funding so they can get access to education or by providing mentorship. So please visit acceducate.org. Thank you guys for joining. And Brother Mutah, thank you again. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Keep up the good work, bro.
Inshallah, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.